It's Nolan. Now, before we get started, make sure y'all hitting that like button. Make sure y'all sharing it on your respective platforms. Let somebody know what we're doing today. Now, let's get into the show. Ahead of y'all, I stay sliding for chips like I'm a debit card. Got the world in my palms like I'm a hooper. Know the joints banging like Hoover. I coach out like Mr. Cooper. Eradicating my foes with flows plenty cold. Shouldered on approach, I came close to the semi. All these funny acting rappers get Emmys. Words matching like Shaq and Penny. If y'all don't see me, you're blind fury. I've been minding my business and take it literal. Took a step back just to shine more like an emerald. Alkaline water with minerals. I'm a general. The stove top cooking your faves. I'm rap emerald. Figaro how the chains broken. Got them searching my origin like I'm Beethoven. Blacker the better. I'm back black and forever. Your rap's whacker than ever. I'm raw like salmonella. My squad prone for the terror. American citizens, please hear me out on my reasonable doubt / king of the south. Where I bounce on beats. Thought I was springs in the couch inviting these MCs to a joust. All I know is the people see me can think inspiration. The boy developed his own and didn't need education. Raised the heat like inflation. My fingerprints spreading through regions and nations. Got enough bars to appease for 3 generations. Yeah, I know they love it when I talk my shit. These rappers stay up on that bull Bill Cartwright shit. I'm on some legendary hereditary saving my gene pool. Never shake hands with a sucker nothing from preschool. Who them boys looking in my window? Have it ghostwriter, won't you check up on my memos? I ain't gotta push a demo. Keep it simple, the cash increase like crescendo. Attack the beats like I'm tempo. I'm steady like Cameron Campbell's my evolution. That Stein is producing like dude that made the crown. They let the rules abolish. We cut the shit like Lorraine Bobby. Find a hobby, a rap career ain't the greatest topic. These boys scraping for change, looking like nail polish. Feeling brawler like Broly. I block haters like goalies. I'm hardcore in the paint like Mick Foley on Anderson. Target the internet like I'm cannabis. Banging on these cats like KG back in Farragut. What's going on, beautiful people? It's the kid J Nolan here. Welcome back to another episode of Inside the Industry, your number one source for music, entertainment, commentary, and breakdowns. Hope y'all doing well this evening. In this video, we're going to be getting into Jay-Z versus Tony Buzbee. It's been quite some time since we've talked about what's going on between the two of them. Of course, y'all know Tony Buzbee was terrorizing Jay-Z the latter part of last year, coming into the top of this year, with Jane Doe from Alabama claiming that he had SA'd her as a minor at the VMA after party. That was dismissed. And since then, Jay-Z opened up 2 lawsuits against Tony Buzbee and 1 lawsuit that also included Jane Doe out in Alabama. The other one that we're going to be talking about today was in California against Buzbee. Unfortunately, the one in California has been dismissed by the judge. Okay? I don't know what the fuck is going on right now. We're in Bizarro world or something like that. But yeah, y'all heard me correctly. If you have not heard, Jay-Z's lawsuit against Tony Buzbee in California has been dismissed. Now, he can appeal it, and I do believe that the appeal has been filed. But, hey man, state of California, LA, y'all shit expensive as hell trying to get into the files. Y'all nigga want $35, $40 to get into these files. I ain't paying the $5. But what I will do is go through Miss Megan Cuniff's coverage of the dismissal in the California case. She does an excellent job of covering these things. And I don't want to waste a lot of time because it's a bit to get through. So let me go ahead and pull up Megan Cuniff's site and we can read through it. All right. So she states here, a judge has dismissed rapper Sean Carter's extortion and defamation lawsuit against the attorney who sued him for blank. The new ruling changes tentative orders issued in February and March after Los Angeles County Superior Court Judge Mark Epstein decided he can't consider recorded statements of Carter's accuser because the woman was acting under an implied threat that her name could be publicized and that if she cooperated, but perhaps only if she cooperated, Carter would not sue her. The tenor and tone of the investigators who visited the woman at her home in Alabama and secretly recorded her was civil and respectful throughout the interview. They were polite and friendly according to the order filed Monday. But the court must take their words in context. They came on Doe unannounced and without warning, obliquely and reluctantly admitting that they were sort of there on Carter's indirect behalf and with a potential issue of disclosure and litigation looming in the background or even foreground, Epstein wrote, referring to the woman's pseudonym Jane Doe. So the judge is basically saying that those private investigators who showed up at Jane Doe's door, who asked her questions and recorded her, which I do believe Alabama is a one-party state, so it wasn't illegal that they did that. And she admitted that it was Tony Buzbee's idea. However, the judge says that they were being, although respectful, they were also being reluctant to admit that they were there on Jay-Z's behalf. And perhaps she may have answered those questions differently had she known that. Okay? Relevance, I don't know, but I am not a judge nor a legal professional. The judge also rejected the investigator's statements that the woman was calm and relaxed throughout. They spoke to her nature, which means that she was cooperative, right? However, they say that is not what the court heard, Epstein wrote. To the court's ear, Doe was concerned and distressed that the investigators had discovered who she was and where she lived. She did not expect to see them on her property and knocking on her door. At times, her voice dropped down to a whisper, and her statements changed from the start of the interview, when she did seem to implicate Carter, to the end. Okay? Now, we've heard portions of that interaction, but not the entirety of it. But it did seem that she was, for the most part, pretty relaxed. But judge says her temperament changed. Okay? Epstein's tentative order in February dismissed 3 statements from Buzbee that Carter alleged defamed him, but allowed 3 to move forward. His final order, however, dismisses all 6. I think you meant that in reverse, Megan. Anyway, his final order, however, dismissed all 6 because he said there's no indication that Buzbee made them maliciously, knowing that they were false and intending to defame, which is the legal standard for defamation of a public figure such as Carter. The related intentional infliction of emotional distress claim was also dismissed. So all counts of Jay-Z's lawsuit in California were tossed because there was no indication that Buzbee made them malicious. Interesting to me. The judge said he would rule differently if he could legally consider the woman's statements to investigators, because then there would be some evidence not only that Carter had nothing to do with any SA on Doe, but that Buzbee knew it, in the sense that according to Doe, it was Buzbee that kept pressing to get Doe to implicate Carter. So once the judge discredited the recordings of Jane Doe, they were Epstein claims that they were left no choice, which I find to be bullshit, but that's just my opinion. They say that pressure, coupled with the statement by Buzbee that he had investigated the claims, would be enough to support an inference of actual malice. Therefore, but for the court's evidentiary ruling, the court would come out the other way on this motion. Epstein said he wishes case law regarding admissibility were just a teeny bit more flexible, and he said he'd interpret legal issues in the controlling case, Sanchez versus Bezos, a bit more broadly, but it was well settled that this court must follow Sanchez. Period. Full stop. The court is aware of no appellate authority questioning Sanchez or reaching a different rule or conclusion. Therefore, this court is bound to follow Sanchez fairly, read and applied, and it will do so, Epstein wrote. Sanchez involved the now brother-in-law of Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, suing him for defamation. Epstein ended his 65-page order, which I wasn't finna read through 65 pages anyway, by cautioning that he's not wholly satisfied that this is the outcome that best serves the legislative and constitutional doctrine. So the judge says, even though this is the conclusion that he found legitimate, he's not wholly satisfied that this is the outcome that best serves the legislative and constitutional doctrines. So the judge is even split in their decision. All of that said, and at length, this court is only the first stop on the party's special motion to strike journey. It will be for the Court of Appeal to determine whether the court got it right or wrong and whether the suit ought to go forward or ought to end. Stay tuned, wrote Epstein, who has been a judge since 2017 and is the son of late California Court of Appeal Justice Norman Epstein. Okay, as I stated before, Jay-Z I think he's already filed the appeal. Buzbee called the ruling a huge win and referenced Carter by the pseudonym he originally sued under, John Doe. Okay, so with that dismissal, Tony Buzbee has taken to the internet and started celebrating early before the appeal. Buzbee says, "Yet another huge win. John Doe's case against me and the Buzbee law firm alleging extortion and defamation was thrown out by the court. As I said, when it was filed, the case was completely meritless. We will now seek attorney's fees against John Doe for bringing the legally flawed case." And John Doe is Jay-Z. He was attempting to keep himself private. But of course, once his name showed up publicly in the other lawsuit, we already knew what it was. Carter's lawyer Alex Spiro said they are surprised and disappointed by this ruling. He said the judge misapplied California law on the admissibility of the investigator's statements and noted the statement about how the ruling would have changed dramatically if he considered the woman's statements. What does it say about our justice system if someone can knowingly bring about completely false claims of the most heinous nature imaginable against an innocent individual and get away with it on a technicality? We plan to appeal this case immediately, said Spiro, a partner at Quinn Emanuel Urquhart and Sullivan LLP in New York City. Full dismissal follows two tentative orders. Using the John Doe pseudonym, Carter sued Buzbee for extortion on November 18th, 3 weeks before Buzbee filed a federal lawsuit accusing him and Sean Diddy Combs of blanking a 13-year-old girl during an after-party for the MTV Music Video Awards in New York on September 7, 2000. The extortion claim concerns two demand letters Buzbee sent Carter's lawyers before he sued, one on behalf of the woman and another on behalf of a man whom Buzbee accused Carter of blanking him in 2005 when he was 16. The man never sued, and Buzbee moved to dismiss the woman's lawsuit in February amid problems regarding his ability to practice in the Southern District of New York. Carter's lawyers, meanwhile, amended their extortion complaint to include defamation for 6 statements Buzbee made during the media appearances about his lawsuits, doing podcast interviews and such. Buzbee's lawyers moved to dismiss all claims under California's anti-strategic lawsuit against public participation law, SLAPP, which aims to thwart lawsuits designed to infringe participation in a public process. Epstein planned to dismiss the extortion claim because he said Buzbee's pre-lawsuit letters to Carter were protected under litigation privilege and not outside the norm for demand letters, which basically gets to uphold the racy nature of demand letters, basically legally extorting people to say, hey, you need to pay me X amount of dollars or I'm going to go file this and it's going to become a public spectacle. The way the law is currently set up, it is protected. But the judge indicated he may change his mind after Carter's lawyers told him of possible new evidence during a February 25th hearing, filed declarations from 2 private investigators, Christine Henderson and James Butler, that described the conversation they had with Carter's accuser outside her home in Alabama, where they arrived unannounced to question her about the lawsuit and Buzbee. Okay, we already talked about that. Let me see if there's anything in here that we didn't already previously discuss. Epstein said the investigators were inconsistent on Doe's anonymity. At times, they suggested that they would keep her name secret no matter what, but at other times, they suggested that they would keep her name confidential only if she cooperated, Epstein wrote. The court believes that Doe could very reasonably view this as an implicit threat, that cooperation was the way to stay out of the limelight and out of the press. Yikes. I gotta be honest. If they did say that, if they did make any sort of implicit threat that we would go public with your identity, yeah, they kind of fucked themselves. The judge also said statements the investigators made to the woman raised significant questions as to who exactly retained them. Henderson told the woman that they were indirectly there on Carter's behalf, which Epstein said leads directly to an ethical question because being indirectly present on Carter's behalf seems suspicious and raises the issue of whether Carter or his counsel indirectly sought to question a person known to be represented by counsel. If that was done at the firm's behest, it leads to ethical concerns, Epstein said, and the facts of this approach are a bit distasteful. Further, while the investigators claim that Carter did not send them, it simply beggars reason to believe that he was unaware of it, or at least that if, in fact, he was not told, it was only to give him plausible deniability. Basically saying it was people close enough to him that could keep him out of it so that if he were asked, he could say, I didn't know about it. Carter's lawyers argue the woman's statements to investigators were admissible through the co-conspirator exception for hearsay, but Epstein said the statements were not made while Doe was participating in any conspiracy, nor was it made prior to or during any conspiracy. You sure about that? The lawsuit against Carter had been dismissed when investigators confronted the woman, Epstein wrote. And even if Carter could get past that, the statements to the investigators hardly seem to be in furtherance of the conspiracy. If anything, they are contrary to the conspiracy's alleged aims. The judge acknowledged the potential significance of the woman's statements. All of that said, the situation would change and change dramatically if the investigators' declarations as to the conversation with Doe were admissible for the truth of what Doe stated. For if that were the case, then there would be some evidence not only that Carter had nothing, we already read that. Judge changes mind on defamation claim. Epstein always planned to dismiss. We read that already. The judge said he cannot say that as a general matter, a lawyer has some obligation to do an investigation to determine whether a client is telling the truth before making statements about the case. All right. So here, it basically absolves Tony Buzbee of having to do any sort of, proper vetting of the client, which I feel is weird. Indeed, any other outcome could chill the attorney-client relationship and free speech because under such circumstances, it will be far too easy to start second-guessing what the attorney should have done, how deep the investigation should have gone, what leads should have been followed, and so on and so on. Doing so after the fact would put attorneys at too great a risk and would chill the exercise of First Amendment rights. No, what it would chill is the occurrence and frequency of these occurrences of bullshit lawsuits, which keep y'all in business. Because if there was a little bit more standard to what could be taken to the legal level, or the civil level, I should say, y'all wouldn't have as many cases, attorneys wouldn't have as much workload, and the profession would take a hit. So no, they're not going to add further requirements. The statements being dismissed for lack of actual malice are, it may not be big names at first, but we have a long list of names, Buzbee said during his interview with Piers Morgan. Buzbee called his client on the blank lawsuit against Carter as a survivor, which Carter's defamation claim alleges, reasonably understood to refer to Mr. Carter as the perpetrator of the alleged assault. I think that should have been taken into consideration. Buzbee was paraphrased by TMZ on December 10th as saying he's not ruling out filing blank charges against Mr. Carter with New York authorities. And what happens next is up to my client. It's her case, and what she decides to do, you will find out in due course. TMZ also reported Jay-Z's blank accuser might take the music mogul's advice and file a criminal complaint against him after slapping him with a civil suit, alleging SA, according to the attorney Tony Buzbee. Okay? So these statements were dismissed of actual malice. All right. Carter is still suing Buzbee and the woman in federal court in Alabama for malicious prosecution, civil conspiracy, and abusive process. Buzbee's law partner David Fortney is also a defendant, as is Antigone Curis, the New York City lawyer who filed the lawsuit against Carter and is Buzbee's co-counsel in dozens of lawsuits against Combs. Carter is also suing the woman for defamation. Okay, so although this case has been dismissed and Jay-Z and his team have the ability to appeal it, they still have the one in Alabama, okay, which Tony Buzbee is fighting to try to get dismissed as well. We're just going to have to see how that one fares in front of a judge. Now, I ain't going to lie to y'all, man. I think that shit is a load of horse shit. Right? Like, if you came in and tried to completely fuck up my life over somebody I don't know, ain't never met, ain't never even breathed in their direction before, and you tried to fuck up my life, my career, and my future off of a potential cash grab, because to us, it's like, all right, Diddy is going through a huge fucking public thrashing, right? And of course, Buzbee attacked that heavily, opened up hella lawsuits against Diddy for a bunch of bogus cases. And then it's like, all right, who's the next person we could get that's close to him? Jay-Z, throw him in there. And it gets tossed on some weird technicality, with the judge still talking about, still being double-minded at the end of the publication, talking about some, I'm not sure if this is good for law, but I have to submit it. Boy, I tell you, we are living in a fucking alternate reality right now. 2024 was bizarre enough. 2025, this bitch is going up in flames. Be vigilant out there. Stay safe. Protect your family and yourself at all times. Because, man, you just never know what some nigga might come out and try to say about you. On some flip, I don't fuck with this nigga, let me just attack him real quick type shit. Let me know what y'all think of all this down below in the comments. Be sure to like and share this video. If this is your first time seeing me on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Become an insider. I'll catch y'all on the next one. Sheesh. King of my city and cul-de-sac. Coming out swinging like soldier rag. Leading my people like quarterback. Boy, I study this shit, I'm an almanac. Had to get up and grind. Knowledge is booming, I'm here to apply. Came with the chip and the dip, it just single the mind. We finna do more than survive. I need my check. Spinning the block for the gouda. We hitting the jeweler to flood out the net. We don't do beef for computers, I'm straight out the sewer. We come when you rest. Niggas be looking perplexed, so keeping my foot on their neck. No map, I trust my gut for the quest. With drama, I'm fully abreast. I was ready for years and they doubted me. All of a sudden they tell me they proud of me. I've been dropping these haters like calories. First I'm out, I came back with some boundaries. Stand for my honor, but too raw, no corner. Packing the stick with a drummer. Wanna catch my bad, won't fumble. I done came too far to be humble.